Hello again, Unificationists. How are you doing? Here we come again with this message. The former video was about Donald J. Trump. This video is a sixth part, which is about current events 2020, the gathering of the dispersed of Israel, and the great surprise of 2025. But before we start, don't forget the 7 conditions. Current events 2020. The events that occurred this year: the pandemic, the fall of the cabal, the protests, the bombs that exploded in Lebanon, and the border between North Korea and China, and the current peace agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, and probably with Lebanon. The pandemic. If we pay close attention to historical accounts, we can clearly see that every 100 years a pandemic occurs, and at the same time a major significant event occurs in God's providence. For example, 100 years ago, the Spanish flu, and on God's side, our great father was born. 200 years ago, the cholera pandemic occurred, and on God's side, Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon Church. 300 years ago, the bubonic plague, and on God's side, John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist Church. 400 years ago, the yellow fever and bubonic plague, and on God's side, the Puritans or Pilgrims, who migrated to the New World, America. 500 years ago, also the bubonic plague and the reform of Martin Luther on God's side, and etc., etc. In order to attack, Satan needs to identify two enemies, internal and external, of God's chosen people, and form a base of give and take with them. Then Satan will feed their resentment and hatred and unite them even if they don't like each other. Once Satan is determined to destroy God's chosen people, he has to identify a traitor or traitors among the chosen people. Traitors must have two main evil characteristics, or just one. One of these characteristics is the unjust love for money. The traitor must give more importance to money than to the ideals of the group. The other evil characteristic is that of jealousy. The traitor is jealous of the leader of the chosen people. Judas, by instance, had both evil characteristics. Otherwise, Satan cannot attack. With the coronavirus, the Chinese Communist Party is the external enemy, and the deep state is the internal enemy, which have the evil plan. That is, the reduction of the world population and the production of an economic collapse in the free world. The scientists who elaborated this virus are the traitors. In the book of Revelation, chapter 15, verse 1, King James Version, "And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God." And in the same book, same chapter, verse 8, King James Version, "And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled." The 7 last plagues. 1. Between 2002 to 2004, the SARS outbreak. 2. In 2009, the swine flu pandemic. 3. In 2012, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus outbreak. 4. Between 2013 to 2016, the Western African Ebola virus epidemic. 5. Between 2015 to 2016, the Zika virus epidemic. And 6. In this year, 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic. There have been more epidemics, but they were only concentrated in one country. But these epidemics spread in several countries and registered several deaths. In the case of the mumps outbreaks in the 2000s was in a single country, but in 2009 it spread in many countries. What happens is that there is no record of deaths. Therefore, if this pandemic before heaven is considered one of the 7 plagues, COVID-19 will be the last. But if it's not, let's prepare for the worst one to come. The question is, how can we survive this pandemic? True Father, when we speak, we spread 100,000 to 140,000 droplets of saliva, like a fog. Due to this spreading of just one person in the neighborhood gets infected, all living animals and humans will also be infected with the virus. It will be a great judgment. It will be scarier than Noah's flood judgment. That's why you have to wear a mask. Father said that in May 10, 2009, Cheonggyeong-gun Palace. And I read again the main part. That's why you have to wear a mask. I agree to wear a mask and handle the quarantine wisely, but closing churches and not bars, shutting down schools and businesses, and not banning violent protests, that's already unfair. Smart quarantine is prioritizing God and family, then health centers, then education, and finally entertainment, not the opposite. But what does it mean to use a mask? It's obvious that when it comes from Trufat's words, it's not something so simple to put on a mask and that's it. Everything has a deeper interpretation when it comes from his words. Therefore, it means prudence, humility, and meekness. Here I have a quote from Martin Luther to recreate what Truffaut wants to express to us. Martin Luther, I shall ask God mercifully to protect us. Then I shall fumigate, help purify the air, administer medicine, and take it. I shall avoid places and persons where my presence is not needed, in order not to become contaminated, and thus, perchance, inflict and pollute others, and so cause their death as a result of my negligence. If God should wish to take me, he will surely find me, and I have done what he has expected of me, and so I am not responsible for either my own death or the death of others. If my neighbor needs me, however, I shall not avoid place or person, but will go freely as stated above. See, this is such a God-fearing faith because it is neither brash nor foolhardy and does not tempt God. Luther said that in Luther's Works, Volume 43, page 132, the letter Whether One May Flee from Deadly Plague, reading to Reverend Dr. John Hess. If we already know how to take care of the virus, now the question is, how do we generate income and continue to deal with the virus? The best type of income we can have to avoid going to places full of people is residual income, and the best way to obtain it is through network marketing. For this type of business, I recommend companies that have worldwide recognition to prevent them from being illegal or scams and to ensure that the products or service are of quality. These are my recommendations to develop the business. 1. Learn very well how to register. 2. Learn the compensation plan very well. 3. Learn about the products or the service very well. 4. Learn very well how customers can obtain products or the service. But once you learn these things, stop going to seminars because then it becomes a price of money. And take the time and do lots of home church activities, such as hondoke, prayer, integration, and field trips. This business can also be a great witnessing tool, but the purpose is to save souls, not to make money. In my personal opinion, the best company for unification is Atomy. This company has many similarities to our movement. For example, the start product of this company is hemoheme, and hemo comes from the word hemoglobin, and that is blood. And this product has the function of purifying our blood, killing cancer cells, and strengthening our immune system. They are the same functions that the holy wine has in its symbolism. Purify our lineage, eradicate our fallen nature, and straighten our character. And the two drinks are red. The growth of this company was very similar to that of the movement. It was born in South Korea, then it was founded in the US and Japan, and then to other countries. Its founder, Hamgil Park, is a Christian And the values of this company are very much based on biblical principles. For example, this business can be passed on to our grandchildren, and True Father always spoke of the importance of the 3 generations in the home. And another very important point of this company is the masstige philosophy, which means mass and prestige. And that in turn means prestigious and quality products for a greater number of consumers, or absolute quality at an absolute price. And that means increasing its quality but not increasing its price if possible. Outside of that, everything is free except for the products. And when the final stage is reached, there is a limit on income, thinking about those who are below. And this is related to the divine principle. Divine principle. According to God's ideal of creation, God confers upon each individual the same original value. Just as parents love all their children equally, God desires to provide pleasant environments and living conditions equally to all his children. Moreover, in an ideal society, production, distribution, and consumption should have the same organic relationship as exists between the functions of digestion, circulation, and metabolism in the human body. Thus, there should not be destructive competition due to overproduction, nor unfair distribution leading to excessive accumulation and consumption, which are contrary to the purpose of the public good. There should be sufficient production of necessary and useful goods, fair and efficient distribution of these goods, and reasonable consumption, which is in harmony with the purpose of the whole. Just as the liver provides a reserve of nutrients for the human body, adequate reserves of capital should be maintained to ensure smooth operation of the entire economy. And I read again the main part. Moreover, in an ideal society, production, distribution, and consumption should have the same organic relationship as exists between the functions of digestion, circulation, and metabolism in the human body. Other important points of this company is that it was founded in 2009, a year before True Father proclaimed the heavenly calendar, and many members are part of it. Even there are already 2 Korean couples, Cain and Abel, of the blessing. 6,000 couples who are royal masters, and of blessing 6,000 couples who are royal masters. This to me means that this company plays an important role in restoring the 3rd blessing in the new providence. True Father, on February 14, 2010, I proclaimed to the world the start of the heavenly calendar. The existing solar and lunar calendars now stand respectively in the positions of Cain and Abel, and have the role of supporting the heavenly calendar, which will record and elucidate the new providence. 2010, April 21st. You can consult more about this company if you wish. You can find the link below. Fall of Cabal. Okay, in the book of Revelation, chapter 16, verse 19, King James Version, and the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. It's no accident that this verse is in chapter 16, and near the end, and the election of President Trump was in November 2016, which was almost the end. This is so because God is using President Trump as the judge of the cabal or deep state. And the great city, I had said that the U.S. represents the New Jerusalem, but it also represents the city of Babylon. And depending on which path it takes, its destiny will be defined. If it fulfills its part of responsibility, it will remain as the New Jerusalem. If not fulfilled, it will remain as the New Babylon, and then to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath, which it means that it will be destroyed. And this final part relates to this passage which also serves as a warning. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 51, verse 17, King James Version, "Awake, awake, stand up, O Jerusalem," or in this case, New Jerusalem, "which has drunk at the hand of the Lord the cup of his fury. Thou hast drunken the dregs of the cup of trembling and run them out." Was divided into three parts. When Donald Trump was launched as a presidential candidate, the North American people were divided into three parts. Those who support him are the able side, those who are against him are the can side, and the lukewarm, they are the ones who are not interested in anything and don't take sides. And the cities of the nations fell. It represents the other countries and powers of the free world. And fell means their government system. In the book of Revelation, chapter 17, King James Version, I'm going to read all the chapter. 1. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. All the trials that have occurred since President Trump took office, Me Too movement, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Hillary Clinton, Pizza or Obamagate, pedophiles, human drug, organ, and sex trafficking network, porn industry, Hollywood, the owners of social media, religious figures, etc. 2. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Kings such as Prince Andrew, former President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary, Barack Obama, John Podesta, even former Colombian President Andrés Pastrana. Their names are registered on Jeffrey Epstein Island. Also many celebrities like Tom Hanks, film director Steven Spielberg, or film producer Harvey Weinstein, etc. are also registered. Or also scandals like that of the King of Spain, Juan Carlos I, and etc. etc. 3. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. When the Apostle John received the book of Revelation, providence was centered in the Middle East, that is, in the wilderness. And since providence moved to the Far East, the scarlet-colored beast has to be a communist nation in the Far East. And this nation is China. The woman is the cabal. And there is research that proves that the cabal has founded communist China, but this is the global level. Now we have to focus on cleaning up the free world, that is the able world, and this beast is represented by the parties of the left, which in the United States is the Democratic Party, and is also funded by the cabal or the deep state. 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. The purple color represents the aristocracy, kings or elite, and the scarlet represents communism or socialism. Many of us know that the Democratic Party is part of the cabal or the deep state, and the Democratic Party is divided into two: socialists like Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Kamala Harris, who represent the scarlet color, and neoliberals like the Clintons and Joe Biden, who represent the purple color. And the golden cup represents the fortune they made for all kinds of immoral business, such as sex, drugs, gambling, witchcraft, etc. In previous elections, many Democrats who love Bernie Sanders abstained from voting for Hillary, and in order to win this time, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris joined forces. 5. And upon her forehead was a name written mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and abominations of the earth. The deep state, many secret societies, and many types of mafia are found throughout the world and in all fields of man. And also I'm going to say something. Reading up on her forehead means like a culture or ideology. Okay, let's continue. 6. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. It doesn't just refer to the saints and believers in history who were haunted by this deep state, but it also refers to the aborted and the children used as a sexual trafficking and other sacrifice to perform satanic rituals and cannibalism. And children, as they are innocent creatures, are also considered saints. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carried her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. As I mentioned earlier, the beast is represented by the Democratic Party in the US. A beast is a selfish superpower that has the ability to destroy a large amount of the world's population if it wanted to. Next, we are going to read a quote from True Father, and it talks about the deep state that has existed for all these long years and has been established in this nation, and its purpose is to create a beast. True Father, governmental abuse of authority. From the very beginning, this was not a tax case. It has been an invasion by the government into the internal affairs of religion. They chose the Unification Church because they thought that no one would come to our defense. However, this is where they miscalculated. The religious community of America knows that unless everyone is safe, no one is safe. When one is threatened, all are threatened. When the government abuses its authority, the consequences are fearsome. It was the Rome state which crucified Jesus. In this country, it was the state which burned witches, persecuted Roman Catholics, shunned Jews, and prolonged black slavery. It was the state which allowed Joseph Smith, founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to be killed by the mob in prison. It is the state which is coming after me and in the process violating the religious freedom of everyone. We must stop this trend now. If we do not, then who is next? I believe it's President Trump. In the providence of God, the case of Reverend Moon has become a rallying point of religious freedom in the United States. I stand convicted for no other reason than my religious belief and practices. I am to be punished for being who I am. This has shocked and awakened the conscience of America. Many religious leaders and believers of all faiths have stood up in outrage. They are registering their protests. Most important of all, they are united. Their unity will ensure the survival of America. Father said that in testimony of the Reverend Samuel Moon at the hearing on religious freedom, June 26, 1984, Washington, D.C. 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. This passage gives the impression that it's reporting a competition. Actually, it's doing that because the election is a competition. If President Trump wins again, the end of the beast in this nation will begin. Go into perdition. 9. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. As I have mentioned, if Jerusalem doesn't fulfill its responsibility, it becomes Babylon. In history, there have been 4 places that geographically consist of 7 hills, mountains, or mountain areas. The first is Jerusalem, which gave birth to the first Israel. Second is Rome, that gave birth to the second Israel. Then South Korea, which gave birth to the third Israel. And now the United States, that is giving birth to the fourth Israel. We already know that Jerusalem, Rome, and the USA consist of 7 mountains or mountain areas, but not South Korea. And here they are: Dobonsan, Halasan, Jirisan, Namsan, Gyeongju Park, Namsan, Seoul-side, Seraksan, and Soraksan. 7. Okay, curiously, these 4 places are at a crucial point. They are on the verge of being destroyed or being victorious. Sorry for my pronunciation in Korean and in English also. Okay, anyway, let's continue. Israel, if they insist on Zionism, Israel will be destroyed by Arab countries like Iran. Rome or Catholic Church, if they insist on Pope Francis' liberation theology, the Catholic countries will be totally ruined or destroyed by the Turkish Empire. South Korea, if they insist on Moon Jae-in's socialism, they will unify with North Korea under the communist regime and eventually becomes a province of communist China, or just the South will be destroyed by these countries. USA, if Biden wins, the deep state will win and the USA will be ruined or destroyed by great powers like China and Russia. True Father, the democratic experiment is already finished. Can America by itself lead the world? America is on the verge of perishing. Currently, the issue is how we can revive America and how we can raise America to be the leader of the world on the path to the kingdom of heaven. If that is God's will, then America would do well to tackle these issues with the thought of the Unification Church and the teachings of Reverend Moon. Until she does that, America will have no way to survive, nor can its people build the bridge to the kingdom of heaven. Fathers say that in the complete Testament age and ideal kingdom. And I read again the main part. If that is God's will, then America would do well to tackle these issues with the thought of the Unification Church and the teachings of Reverend Moon. 10. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. 5 are fallen: Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. And 1 is Donald Trump. And the other is not yet come, Hyunjin Shanmun. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. It doesn't mean that he will last a short time as president. He will surely last both terms. What it means is that when he takes office, the kingdom of heaven will begin to establish on earth. 11. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goes into perdition. The beast that was and is not, Joe Biden and his entire team represent the beast. Even he is the 8th. He is the 8th because he is none of the 7 that I mentioned, and is of the 7, but he is included in the 7 because he was the vice president in the Obama administration. Goes into perdition. The most certain thing is that they will lose the elections and their evilness will be discovered. 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings. 1 hour with the beast. As mentioned in this passage, the 10 horns represent 10 kings. Now I'm not sure, but it may be possible that this refers to 10 senators or 10 governors who are going to join Joe Biden, loses or doesn't lose. 13. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. They will do their best to accomplish the New World Order agenda. 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Obviously, the Lamb refers to true Father, but since Father has passed away, it refers to his teachings and spirit. Therefore, the war will be ideological. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. This refers to the unificationists, and that is why Father said, if that is God's will, then America would do well to tackle these issues with the thought of the Unification Church and the teachings of Reverend Moon. 15. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horde seated, are peoples and multitudes, and nations and tongues. We already know from the divine principle that the waters represent fallen people, but with this passage we can confirm that all these types of mafias are found everywhere on earth. 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. This is what I think is going to happen. Once the bad intentions of all these politicians are discovered, they are going to be tried, and the deep state abandons them, and they for revenge begin to confess all the evil that I have mentioned in previous interpretations. 17. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Well, I guess this confirms that they, the evil politicians, are going to be in charge of uncovering everything. 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigned over the kings of the earth. This great city refers to the United States if it doesn't fulfill its responsibility, but exactly it refers to all those mafias, elites, or secret societies that control the governments of each nation. False prophet equals fake news. In the book of Revelation, chapter 19, verse 20, King James Version, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet, that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire, burning with brimstone. In the book of Revelation, chapter 16, King James Version, verses 13 and 14, King James Version obviously, and I saw 3 unclean spirits, like frogs, come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Surely many of you have been surprised by the title, but the false prophet represents not only religious leaders like Pope Francis, but also the fake news. If the mark of the beast represents the communist or socialist ideology, the mission of the false prophet is to deceive people who accept this ideology. And that's the reason why it says, I saw 3 unclean spirits, like frogs, come out of the mouth. Then it means that they are lying, and those spirits are evil spirits that support these lies through the evil mind of people. It is, as the divine principle indicates in the chapter of the human fall, how evil spirits work with men on earth. And that's why True Father bought and created several newspapers in different countries for the purpose of spreading the truth. Protests. The protests that are taking place lately are the product of civil wars in each country. For example, the Black Lives Matter and Antifa protests are Cain-like because on the one hand they victimize themselves, and on the other their protects are very violent. They also focus more on resentment rather than facts and common sense, and it's ridiculous because their demands against racism are already included in the Constitution. They want to defund the police to foment anarchism and create chaos. And outside of that, protests are funded by George Soros. On the other hand, the able-type protests are emerging. In Germany, there were marches against the New World Order agenda. In California, against illegal trafficking and sexual abuse of children. Also pro-life marches. And for the traditional family, in all these able-type marches, the unificationist must participate in and condemn the Cain type. True Father, then what did God expect from Adam and Eve? God expected absolute sex from them. You, world leaders gathered here tonight, please learn this truth and take it back to your countries. If you start a campaign to secure absolute sex in your country, your families and your nation will go straight to heaven. When there is absolute sex, an absolute couple will emerge automatically. Words such as free sex, homosexual, and lesbian will naturally disappear. Father say that in search of the region of the universe. In that speech. And I read again the main part. If you start a campaign to secure absolute sex in your country, your families and your nation will go straight to heaven. We can see that this is an able-style protest, and we used to do it with pure love aliens. Far East, explosions on the border between North Korea and China. 10 people died and dozens injured. Until now, the reason why they did it is not known, but it's obvious that it was the Communist Party. I stop here and I continue in the next video.